Thank you so much for doing this Create Freely coaching session
Yeah.
with me so that people can watch it. I'm really chuffed that you're doing this with me, being a
Thank
fellow
you.
creator and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. I got high
Yeah.
hopes.
I
Put some
hope
pressure on you.
we
Please
love
try and sort
pressure.
it out.
So maybe for people who don't know you, can you say a little bit about yourself to kick us off?
Okay.
Whatever
I
you want to share,
Yeah, I had a YouTube channel years ago and was doing teaching and different things in kind of the real world type of thing. And I was trying to move the teaching and have a business to being online, but it didn't work. I didn't feel good on camera, all these other reasons, and I left YouTube, whatever. I A few years ago I became ill and I thought I need to retry YouTube again. And then, as I say, I think today's day 326. I've been doing daily videos with the goal being to get comfortable on camera. First of all, it was just to get comfortable and relaxed because I don't want to do the whole I'm teaching, reading a script. I want it to be kind of podcasty, but relaxed, conversational. For me, that was a style of speaking that I was aiming for. And I thought the only way to do that is to keep turning the camera on.
That's it.
So I
Yeah.
don't have a business plan as such. I've written books, I've done things in the past. I'm I'm trying to be open-minded about how much of that comes in and weaves into my future and whether there's going to be a new path.
I think it's a good approach, to be honest. Everybody's different. Some people really need plans, and for other people, it works better to just to try it out and see what happens.
Yeah. I think sometimes it can be deceptive because it sounds like I haven't given it any thought whatsoever. Clearly, I've gone so far down a path. I've got a YouTube channel and I've written books, but there's still a whole load to figure out within that.
There's always something to figure out.
There's always something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you said you had high hopes. What would you like to focus on for this session?
Um, what would I like to focus on?
I have an
I
idea, but I let you talk.
Yeah. I haven't really thought about it. I just thought oh, it'd be fun to hang out, and the way I perceive your work is the reason I come to your channel is just to hang out in your energy. In the word that I would think about your work is kind of being brave, and clearly I'm attracted to that because I want to be braver in the things that I want to do. Because I think you are, aren't you? You like certain content, and it's probably because you want to bring that element out of yourself.
I think it is often like that, and I what was in my mind, because we have talked a little bit off
Mhm.
camera quite a few times, and it probably leans into the being braver because the question is, what does that really mean? And what's still in my mind was comments that you wanted to be a little bit more dangerous. Remember
Yeah,
that? So I'm
yeah.
kind of curious, do you think that that links into the being braver?
I think so. I think generally people have been incredibly kind and generous and encouraging in the comments. There are ones that stand out in my mind saying nobody's interested in you, yeah, different things like that. Sorry, excuse me. Braver for me isn't necessarily about doing something wild, but it can be about expressing an opinion or make an assumption about the audience being interested in something that I'm geeking out about.
That is another word that seems to be really important for you, the geeking out.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so yeah, so the being, but you're saying you don't want to be too wild. So you have,
What I mean by wild is that I'm not interested in taking my clothes off and doing stuff like that, you know. So
this is
that's what I mean by wild. Like,
okay, interesting.
yeah,
And so. Okay, so just if you, I would love for you to just free associate the word dangerous, whatever, just don't try to figure it out so much, but
Hmm.
and I can throw in what I feel is dangerous for me, if you
Okay.
like, but just kind of throw it out. What comes to mind? What would be
Yeah.
dangerous?
I Dangerous is people disagreeing with me and risking being misunderstood if there's something that's a complex or nuanced. Dangerous is expressing an opinion at in particular expressing an opinion that may take longer than just being a soundbite.
Okay, can you go into that a little bit? Is that kind of like what is longer than a soundbite? Is an opinion? What would
Well,
that
if I
be? Give
yeah,
an example
so
of a
if I'm
complete
thinking
opinion.
something relevant, I feel like some people may jump in very quickly and say, no, it's not relevant. Sometimes I feel like I'm trying to explain myself all the time. So, for example, I'm doing these daily videos,
Mhm.
and sometimes I'm kind of looking at the camera and going, I'm telling you this to help you, right? I'm not just saying this because I want to, you know. And I think dangerous to me is not doing that explanation. Just going, it's fine. It's fine if they think I'm a narcissist who wants to talk about myself all day long.
Okay, so that is really interesting. First of all, let me tell you one thing. If you were a narcissist, you even wouldn't have that thought
Yeah.
to start with, you know.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting one, and I see that actually with many people that are the opposite of a narcissist, that they have real fear of being perceived as someone who's selfish,
Hmm.
you know, just talking about yourself. And often it's comments we got, I don't know, at a younger age or
Hmm.
through other people. And then we do the opposite. We kind of try to always be diplomatic, you know,
Yeah.
or because it does feel literally dangerous. It
Yeah.
does feel dangerous to our system. And I totally can relate. And I think what's so difficult about it is that you can't just say it isn't dangerous because it is, and all
Hmm.
these fears you are having are valid.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean not to do it, but they are valid. And I don't see any
Yeah.
point in just saying, oh, just forget about those fears, just do it, because it's kind of like as if you're not taking these parts that do feel afraid seriously enough.
Hmm.
So, but at the same time, I think what feels this feeling of not being seen or silenced comes from not expressing your opinion,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't know, a double whammy, no matter what you do, you know, if you don't express it, it might be that a part of your vitality is just,
Yeah.
going. But if you do express it, it comes with a risk,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to see that and to acknowledge that.
Hmm. I think
Because
I'd really like to be. Sometimes when I've been interviewing people, it's almost like I'm swept along with the excitement, which is why I talk about the geeking out. But doing a video where it's just me speaking to camera, that definitely feels more dangerous. That feels like a conscious decision of go full out and play full out. Where sometimes when I'm thinking in my head, oh, this story is relevant, but I'm also thinking, oh no, I've got to explain why it's relevant or consider, instead of just going whoosh, and oh my goodness, this just makes me think of this. So I do a few reaction videos, and sometimes that's been useful practice for being on my own and letting myself just go off in a direction. But there's definitely a voice in my head that says, enough now. Enough talking about you, Joe.
the question is it really talking about you or is it a geeking out? No. Is it really, if we question that voice a little
Yeah.
bit, that's saying, enough about you, isn't it just you expressing an either opinion or something
Mm.
that obviously is close to your heart or something that is really important to you?
I think, yeah, it's probably a bit of both because I know that sometimes I say, I may say a story like, oh, yeah, I was living in this country, and, so there are actually points about me, but it's just bits of information that I've found really interesting that, I feel connect to whatever the conversation is.
So do
I
you
don't know.
have,
It's weird. It's weird to think that that feels dangerous. It's weird.
I think it's very valid, and
Mhm,
I think it is really, as I've said before, because there are many people like this. And I think
mm,
that's in a way, I sometimes have the feeling our world lacks the opinion of exactly those people because there's enough opinions out there of those people who are not afraid, yes?
yeah,
But
yeah,
often I think that these other people who have those fears have really interesting, unique viewpoints, and we
mhm,
lose them because that fear is so much in the way. But
yeah,
at the same time, I do think it is important to acknowledge it. And
mhm,
if you immediately get then upset with that fear or that you're thinking, I shouldn't feel, it shouldn't feel dangerous, I think that's rubbish,
mhm,
because you're just kind of then putting something else on top
yeah, yeah,
versus kind of acknowledging the fear and seeing the fear and then working, it's tough to acknowledge it because it means, okay, so this is a valid fear. It could be
mhm,
that people misunderstand you. You could
yeah,
get a nasty comment, but if you
mhm,
acknowledge that, then we can go into, okay, and what can you do about it in each case? And then you feel
yeah,
more, then the risk is still there, but you put a parameter around
mm,
risk, which makes it, you need to feel safe enough to be able to take the risk
yeah,
you know it's still uncomfortable, but if
mhm,
you just kind of push yourself over the edge,
mhm,
which would be the other extreme. I know that for myself. You get so annoyed with yourself. You're holding back, you're holding back, you're holding back until
mm,
you're so annoyed that you say, and now enough.
yeah,
And then you go the other extreme and push yourself over the edge, which
mhm,
often then leads to retreating again
mhm,
because it was too much. And I think that what's so difficult about it is it's kind of finding that sweet spot, where you kind of feel safe enough to do something that's a bit more risky for you than what you've done before.
yeah. Excuse me. Yeah.
And I think what I'm really curious about, so do you have like the geeking out, yes, and the talking about a subject? So
Mhm.
does immediately something come to mind? Is there something you always wanted to do, but you haven't done it? Is a particular subject?
I've been reading quite a bit about ADHD lately, and I'm not diagnosed as it, but a lot of the a lot of what I've read about it resonates with me. But I don't think I might have mentioned neuro spicy or something in passing, but I don't think I've ever done a video about it. Um, I think I don't know. I I don't know whether some people would just switch off straight away. I don't feel like I've consciously said do not talk about it, but there's definitely things that as I'm reading, I'm like, oh, I'd love a good conversation about that and just go off in a few different directions and how that connects to that. And,
Okay, so if you're up for it, you can say totally no.
mm,
So if you had the opportunity now just a little tryout,
mhm.
to talk about this and just to see what it feels like for a few minutes, and I just sit back and listen to you. Do you think that that is too dangerous, or do you think you can?
I think my mind is going immediately blank. That's
Oh, I will
yeah.
be there for you, and we'll just see what happens. What kind of things spark for you with that subject? And why do you feel you would love to talk about it?
Yeah,
Why is it you would love to talk about it? Let me know.
my mind is going a bit blank. I'm one of the things that I'm really interested in with the YouTube and something I've read with the ADHD is the idea of reinventing yourself with different people, because as soon as you get to speaking to a camera, you can feel a bit lost, because I was so used to it didn't feel like I was reinventing myself. It felt like I was responding to that conversation, and I could see different, I don't know, different things that they were interested in, and that I would pick up on those signals and take the conversation in that direction. Because when I'm having a conversation, typically it can go in lots of directions, and in fact in the interviews that's been one of the problems, is I hesitate at a certain point because my brain is trying to go, literally trying to go in a few different directions, and I have to go, stop, right, which direction do you want to go in? But that's why, I don't know whether it is related to the ADHD or just being creative, that you have so many different ideas and everything connects to everything, and it's a fun conversation, but it's made going onto YouTube really hard. And and I was thinking the other day, instead of talking about finding my voice on YouTube, is it about finding my voices in that? And that's something that we were talking about previously to do with the cartoons. And I know we are kind of playing and exaggerating with that, as in, do I make up voices even? But sometimes it's light and sometimes it's darker. Um, I've been wondering about, I suppose some of it is, do I lean into that? Do I lean into the fact that I may not have just one voice in the way I want to express myself in the YouTube channel, and that I may imagine different people that I'm talking to and adapt to that?
Okay, so now I made a huge, which is totally fine, but I would love to bring it back just for a second. So one thing I would say is that I think it's very valuable when it comes to really learning to speak your truth, it is leaning into subjects, as ourselves and talk about them, like for
Mm-hmm.
example, the ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty about the cartoons and the voices, for example, it's also expressing your truth, but through an artistic means.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and it's two different avenues, but I personally feel it's very important to somehow, when it comes to reclaiming our voice, when it's,
Mm-hmm.
when it's about that, and also showing up with important things, we can do both. We can
Yeah.
explore it's kind of a little bit a different feeling, and different people might be interested in different things. One might be more attracted to the comics, but your
Mm.
voice is carrying through all of those things.
Yeah.
And the more, in my experience, is the more you allow yourself to do those seemingly very different things that don't connect.
Mm-hmm.
If you do a lot of those, you see your unique red thread
Yeah.
weaving through. That's why I think it is actually important to give yourself that permission.
Yeah. I'd love to feel that there is something going through. I know with the cartoons, when I first started doing them, I felt like they were all over the place. And then now I look at them and I'm like, uh, I mean, they're just me all the way through. And I'd love to feel that way about the videos and other things that I'm creating. I I can't necessarily see that thread through it.
That I think that's in a way what I call walking into the unknown, uh,
Mm-hmm.
because if you really are process orientated, yes, and
Mm-hmm.
you take things step by step, you get the next step.
Mm-hmm.
You're only shown by your intuition or instinct the next step,
Mm-hmm.
not the next 10, only the next one. And that
Yeah.
means that in a way, this I don't know, realization or insight,
Hmm.
how it's all connected, often only
Yeah.
comes
Looking back. Yeah.
looking back. So it's kind of the trusting that it's all gonna connect.
Yeah.
I give you an example. I remember when I did one show, I wanted it to a theater show. I wanted it to be funny, yes, comedy. And
Hmm.
we improvised a lot as well to find the material. And I came up with this dark stuff, yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking, how is this going to be funny? And
Mm.
and it was really trusting,
Yeah.
that it will somehow make sense. It's
Hmm.
trusting that it will make sense at the end. And if you already,
Yeah.
the problem becomes when you get somehow you're in the middle of it. I have it with drawings as well, and I'm using weird colors and they don't fit together.
Hmm.
Very easy to say, so what are you doing? What is this? And
Hmm.
instead of just throwing this away, you just keep on going and you trust that it all
Yeah.
comes together and that it's not in your hand when it comes together.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
often it is not this linear process, and it really can happen like this, that just before you're finished with
Mm.
something, you get this breakthrough and you realize, oh, of course, all of this is connected.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like out of the corner of my eye, it's almost like I can see something, and then when I try to look at it, it's gone. And I was like, oh, because I say, really, by now, I thought it would be clearer how the pieces fit together. I'm pretty sure they do, but again, it's that trust. It's taking a lot longer than I originally thought it would.
Yes, and I think that's down to the expectations again, isn't it? It's like
Yeah,
expecting yourself to be somewhere else than you are, and that's the moment when you can't enjoy the journey anymore.
yeah, yeah. No, it'd be really nice. I think, as I say, I want to get better at this. So part of me then switches on to have a plan, but but I think what's helped me so far is to keep having projects and to be more in that in the moment of this is what seems fun and interesting right now.
I personally also work very well with projects because it allows me to experiment and
Hmm.
to maybe also remind myself. I think it's that continuous reminding yourself that this is about the journey,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
with things like YouTube, where it's so easy to get hung up on the statistics. But it's like,
yeah.
if you were traveling, let's say you were traveling from England to Portugal. Yes.
Hmm.
And if you only fixated on getting to Portugal, it might be draining.
Hmm.
Whereas you say, oh, I'm going to stop here. If you were taking the car, I'm taking the
Hmm.
ferry, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to, it's going to be this trip that is worthwhile the experience. And I think
Yeah.
we live in such a result orientated society that it's very
Hmm.
easy to forget that the real joy is actually the journey and not knowing what happens in between.
Hmm.
You might take this detour, you don't know why.
Yeah, yeah.
And obviously, it's very easy to say all of this. I think it's really this constant reminder that it's about the journey and about the discovery,
Yeah.
and when you stay in this headspace, this headspace of trying to figure things out and trying to
Hmm.
plan things, you can't have the experience. It's not possible.
Yeah, I think it's just I feel like switching between the two is kind of clunky, and I feel like almost I stay too long on one and being in the moment, and then I don't know what I'm building or what I'm doing at all, and then I'm focused, and it could be for a few weeks where I'm thinking about, oh, plan it and think about it, and it's like, oh, I wish it felt more comfortable to give it a little bit of thought about, oh, look up a little bit and think about where you want to go. Oh, now we can do this project.
To me, it sounds very much that the one voice is very much like how you're supposed to do things. That's
Yeah.
how it comes in, because you're supposed to have a plan. And it seems like there's that one that seems to be more you, that loves to just
Mhm.
see what happens and doesn't quite know what's happening. And then the other part comes in and
Yeah.
to keep you, on track and says,
Yeah.
you've got a plan. And the question is, could you, and that's the tricky point, to catch yourself, because to catch yourself when it happens before you've gone down the rabbit hole of the figuring out and the planning,
Yeah.
and whether there could be something for you, a little thing you could do to somehow relax that part a little bit again and say, I've got this. It's
Yeah.
not time for planning. Is there something you could?
Yeah. I don't know. I was thinking then in terms of the planning, part of it is sort of explaining to the audience like, oh, this is why I'm going off on this tangent and this tangent, where most of my work over the last 20, 25 years is about being misunderstood and worrying about being misunderstood. And yet the cartoons were the whole goal of that project was to make friends with being misunderstood. And yet I seem to forget that in the videos. It's like it's okay.
Well, if that puts you at ease, at the beginning of this year, said to myself, I'm going to take things very slowly, step by step.
Yeah,
I had that, like a snail, really slowly. And then all these parts came up that were pressuring me, and the opposite happened.
yeah,
And so that's kind of a funny thing, isn't it? That sometimes we say, okay, in your case, it's being misunderstood,
yeah,
and befriending that being misunderstood, right?
yeah.
And
So
you kind of fall into it. It's like as if everything that wants you to keep safe, you know, comes
yeah,
up.
but that's back to that dangerous thing again, isn't it?
It
It's
is.
like clearly for me, the not explaining myself and everybody being like, why is she doing that now? Why is she, she did reactions and now she's doing interviews and now she's doing cartoons. What, I don't know what she's going to do. It's like,
I
me
think,
neither.
I think that the thing is, the more awareness we have about what's happening, and we can kind of leave with those different parts that want different things,
Yeah.
more awareness you have and you catch it in the moment,
Okay.
the more you can actually really work with it.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean that there's parts, they are lovely. They want to keep us safe. They want us,
Hmm.
and I don't think it makes sense to say, okay, so they will go away.
Yeah.
But knowing what's happening and catching it sooner and then saying, I've got this, thank you very much. You can
Yeah.
relax now. I'm going back to now just creating the way I want to. It's really bringing awareness because it happens very quickly. It's so in our subconscious. So I think it's the work is catching yourself in the
Yeah.
moment when it happens, and have really something like that's what I meant, like a little tiny ritual. Either you
Yeah.
talk to it and saying, "Oh, it's fine, I've got this." You can relax, go
Yeah.
into your hammock, like something. That's why I
Yeah.
asked whether you can come up with something. Be very clear which space you're in. Are you in the
Yeah.
space, where you just going with things, taking the risk of being misunderstood?
Yeah.
Or are you in the space trying to keep you safe?
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, can you come up with something when you catch yourself? What could you do? Something quick, something easy, not for
Yeah.
hours.
No,
Just
no, I
give it a name, maybe. That
give it a name.
that worried, keeping you safe, figuring out, planning part. What would you call it?
Um, I don't know whether it's a very nice thing to say. I'm calling her Karen at the moment. Yeah,
It's for you, and also
yeah,
it's interesting. I sometimes have parts I start with one name and
yeah.
I
I
can
don't. I see. I don't see it as being a terrible, like a really bad part. I just feel like it's not particularly helpful right now because I'm
yes, and
still
and,
in the
and
figuring
and
out section. Yeah,
you see, and I think that the funny thing is what we don't understand. It's not getting rid of that part, but
yeah,
giving
yeah.
it
It's working.
a role that's maybe more helpful, and it needs
Yeah,
it needs the turning towards instead
yeah,
of turning away from it.
yeah,
And so I think something just simple like saying, you can relax now.
yeah,
I've got this.
yeah,
And thank you for showing up, but you can
yeah,
relax now. Something really simple like this.
yeah,
And to that could be a practice, but
yeah,
and I really would say you at least would need to do it for a month or something,
yeah,
to oh hi Karen, here you are again.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
yeah.
You can
I,
relax.
I know that, as I say, because I've been doing these daily videos and I'm getting close to the year now, and I've kind of got just over a month, and that's helped me focus of, oh no, maybe it's just a month of doing bigger experiments of like try something different because of the whole the whole thing was supposed to be a 1 year experiment of it doesn't have to have achieved anything in that year. Um, and I had that set up in my mind. So when I think about each day, that switches away from that. But I can hear what you're saying. I don't feel like I'm acknowledging the role that side of me plays and saying thank you. I think I'm trying to be like, oh yeah, yeah, shush,
Go,
shush,
yes.
yeah,
And I think what's so tricky about it, and it's a very normal thing to do because it's so uncomfortable. And also
yeah,
it often feels like this internalized voices, that just don't sound nice, but they are part of us. They have become part of us. And the more we push them away, the more they try to get our attention. And the more you push it
yeah,
away, the more they're gonna try and pull you in the other direction, and you're even not noticing it. And so it's I think it feels very counterintuitive to turn towards. It's much more
yeah,
difficult. It's much more difficult because for in order to turn toward, we need to feel that what this icky feeling, you
mhm,
know. But if we don't do it, we get just, we get sucked into it and we get run by that part, you know,
yeah,
and that's where you're in that rabbit hole of planning and figuring out, and then a week later you kind of emerge and you think, oh my God, what's been happening? And so I think
yeah.
it's kind of
Excuse me.
taking it on the journey with you, and
Yeah,
trying to ease to have it relax a little bit so that you can go into this what you call the more dangerous
yeah,
territory. And what speaks really to me is that being misunderstood
hmm,
and feeling misunderstood, because I think
yeah,
you have no idea how many people feel like that.
hmm,
And whether you then do it through the lens of ADHD or through any other lens. There are so
yeah,
many lenses you can play this
hmm,
through with. ADHD, I think, is one, certainly one part of it. Chronic illness, from my point of
yeah,
view, is also another part of it. Being who you are and not being accepted for who you are.
hmm,
is another part of it. And so I have the feeling, many, many people relate to this. And I think
Yeah.
that's, if anything, that's the umbrella, where the ADHD and everything else falls under, is that huge feeling of being misunderstood,
Yeah.
and obviously it's kind of like I think we all have been in this situation, we have somebody close to us and we feel misunderstood, and then we try to explain and we explain because we want to be understood. And if somebody just can't understand, we
Yeah.
keep on explaining. So it's also that is very
Mm.
understandable.
Yeah. It feels kind of vulnerable to be so excited. And as I say, I use the word geek out, but that feels quite vulnerable to me to show how excited I am about
Yes.
a report that I read or like, just some information or something. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so exciting. And that feels a little, I say silly, but also it's kind of vulnerable of this is what I do for fun.
And it is, isn't it? Like we put ourselves out there and it is vulnerable. And it is, in a sense, easier, in quotes, if you just react to something
Mm.
or respond to someone
Yeah.
and their subject. It's also beautiful. Don't
Mm.
misunderstand me, but you, you probably won't ruffle any feathers, right?
Yeah.
But the moment you go into this where you really feel excited about something, or you have an opinion about it,
Hmm.
you know, uh, there is there are some people who can judge it,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And I think what happens, what we also often don't understand, is that we then do the judging already
Hmm.
to keep safe so that other
Yeah.
people can't, with ourselves,
Yeah.
other people can't do it anymore. And it's all for safety. That's what it is.
Hmm.
All of this is a way to keep us safe, but it also obviously keeps us small at the same time,
Yeah.
because it's either being completely safe or being, I think that's also, we think in these extremes sometimes, either completely safe or you completely exposed.
Yeah.
But I personally, what I feel is that subject of being misunderstood,
Yeah.
and then underneath that to have one video about ADHD and see what comes up with this. I
Yeah.
would find that very exciting, to be honest, just to take that subject and run it in
Yeah.
as many different ways as you can, like through the cartoons if you want to,
Mm.
but also really talking about it.
Yeah.
Uh, because I think the thing is, there are these taboos, nobody talks about it, but everybody feels it.
Yeah.
Most people, I think, feel deep down, if they really show who they are, they're going to be judged
Hmm.
and they're going to be misunderstood. I think that's for many people
Yeah.
that fear.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. So, okay, so if you were doing a video about the ADHD, right?
Yeah.
And so what could you do for yourself to keep yourself safe if it was too much to, what would you need to be able to go in this a little bit more dangerous zone that you would feel safe enough to do it?
I think it needs to feel like it's connected to an idea that's a bit more relevant, sort of a way in to
Relevant
get
to who?
started. Um, Relevant to I don't know. I'm not sure whether I am thinking of the audience or whether I'm just thinking about or what's triggered that thought today. That so, for example, if I've just seen an interview, then sometimes I get this excitement and I'm like, oh, I want to make a video because I want to link that thing that I know to this video that's only just been published. So that there tends to be like that tipping point of something connects those dots, and then I create something.
So what is it? What's the tipping point with the ADHD? What is it that is? Because obviously it's important to you, isn't it?
Yeah, I was, as I say, I was watching a video the other day about it, but I don't have the notes in front of me, so I can't remember what it is. But I remember writing out in big capitals one of the things that it was saying. But I think it was about finding your place in the world type of thing. And I know that that's come up in conversations, like that we've had with other people too. So, and that idea of your place in the world and what you do. And that relates obviously to the chronic illness and different things. So
So
I
do you
think it
feel
was those words. And I was like, are those words and that concern a human thing, or are those words and that concern an ADHD thing? And I thought that was interesting to explore.
okay? And what do you think?
Well, I always thought it was human, but now I'm hearing things about ADHD, and I'm like, you mean other people don't worry about those things? Or other people? I mean, sometimes I hear people talk about their YouTube channel and things, and they say, and they're so confident and so certain, and I'm like, is that really how they're feeling, or is that a performance, or do they genuinely believe that they're saying the right thing about everything and that everything is great? And I don't know.
You would
They
probably
seem to
need
be
to
having a
interview those people and dig a little bit deeper and ask
yeah,
them, are you really so confident or are you just pretending to be?
yeah. I was just I always assumed everybody was having the same internal experience to me, but it's only over the last couple of years that I've been hearing stuff, and I'm like, oh, so you don't do that? Like I didn't realize, like with the dyslexia type of thing. Um, they said, oh, it's a dyslexic thing to sing the alphabet song to know where the letters are coming. Like, do you know what I mean by that? So if I'm looking for a phone number,
Yeah.
I sing the alphabet song to know where the letter is roughly.
Okay.
And they went, no, other people don't do that. And apparently it's a dyslexic thing. And I go, well, I thought that was the point of the song, to remember where the letters come in the alphabet. It's just like, and I thought, oh, okay, we're having a different experience here. I thought, you know,
So what I'm really curious about, to tie it back, because you said, it's about finding your place in the world, and
yeah,
you thought everybody was trying to find their place in the world.
yeah,
So if you were to find out this is an ADHD, so if it's an ADHD thing,
yeah, or a thing. I mean, I think it's that I suppose I don't know. Go on, finish your question. You were saying if I
yeah,
find it,
I would be curious about, so does that mean then you're in that bracket of the ADHD different people, or is that finding your place in that, or would you understand what I mean?
I think, as I say, there's quite a few things that I'm surprised at, because I've looked at other people. One of the things is I can feel quite jealous sometimes of other people who are very certain about their path and their place and their purpose and different things like that. And I'm like, and I kept trying for that. I felt like I kept aiming for that and failing at it. And now with this other understanding, it's like, oh, maybe we're wired differently. Maybe
Okay,
they're having a
which kind of
different,
takes the pressure off then.
yeah, they're having a different internal experience. I'm having this experience. I may not reach that kind of certainty. It may be that me being open to multiple things and seeing things, everything connected, is is something that could be a strength. In which case, stop trying so hard to be certain and go off, go off.
There you go.
Yeah, go off somewhere.
Maybe that's something you would need to write down for yourself. Stop trying to
Yeah,
be so certain.
yeah,
That's exactly, you just gave yourself,
yeah.
the
But
thing.
I know that sometimes I feel jealous about how certain some people are, and I think that can be a clue, can't it? But I kept thinking if I try harder, if I figure it out, or if I know, but
Yeah.
it may be that we're just wired differently, and I think that I was just finding that interesting.
I would say also this, and I think that's also important to see. I think you have to put it into the societal context because there's a strong thing about it's linear thinking, right?
Yeah,
There's the goal A, B,
yeah,
C, D, E, F, G, and that's how you got there, and it's the norm.
mm,
Doesn't mean that it's good or bad, but there's a
yeah,
norm. And if you kind of feeling you're outside of the norm, which
yeah,
all creative people are, you
hmm,
know, then it's kind of like you can't be both. You can't be creative and doing free spirited and
yeah,
brand new things and be in the norm at the same time. You can't because you don't have the outside view on it. And I think it's in a way, whether it's ADHD or not, to put
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
aside, I can see that that could really help to ease the pressure because whatever helps to kind of just be okay with the way how we are and who we are.
yeah, yeah.
You
And
know,
I
but
think,
yeah.
yeah, as you were talking, then I was thinking, I'm I'm putting quite a high value on their certainty, which may be completely natural and, like you say, a linear thing. And I'm not valuing what I might be experiencing as seeing everything connected. And
And I think this is where
sometimes I
the
feel like it goes off on a tangent, I suppose I'm hearing voices from the past of saying, stick to this one thing. And
but
yeah,
that's I think exactly what it is. And I think why it is so important to put it into a wider context.
yeah,
It's us only who can change things, but there is a
hmm,
context in which this
yeah,
happens, and there is certain things that are valued more than
hmm,
others. If
yeah,
it was the other way around, if society was valuing process and free-spiritedness and those things that are more, I don't know, rebellious, probably,
hmm,
then you wouldn't even have a problem with it. You
yeah,
and
yeah,
and so I think it takes more awareness to because it's a slightly shaming thing. So you're not this person who has everything figured out and the goals,
hmm,
you
yeah.
do that other more, seeing things in
I just
context.
tend to see things a little bit more nuanced, and so when
Yes,
people
and that's
say
it.
I have this opinion, and I'm like, in this situation, yes, I agree, and in that situation, I think this, and that's you know, I,
And I think that's a beautiful thing.
yeah,
And so I think the work is really it's that doubt that creeps in, that
hmm,
doubt that's doubting the quality you're having and
yeah,
thinking you have to succumb to the quality everyone or the society seems to put on such a high pedestal. Ideally, we
yeah,
have both, and some
yeah,
people are better in this. And so I'm not saying that that other thing is bad, but it's just over pronounced, and
yeah,
I think the thing is, we are happiest, I guess, if we allow ourselves to be who we are and,
yeah,
in a way, also to own our own experience.
hmm,
It's your experience. It's you who's experiencing it this way. It's you
yeah,
who's singing the alphabet song. And it's kind of, whether it is whatever it is, it's
hmm,
kind of standing or giving permission to stand more firmly in this
yeah,
and to be aware you are allowed to have this experience. You are allowed to have this specific experience and to be aware when you fall into the comparison, which
yeah,
I think, it all sounds very easy,
hmm,
but it isn't. because it's
Hmm.
constantly around us. You know, you
Yeah.
watch on YouTube those people who seem to be so confident and whatnot. It's constantly coming at you. And that's why
Hmm.
it kind of it takes work to really strengthen. You know, you don't
Hmm.
need to strengthen your self-doubt. And
Yeah.
it's kind of dealing with those voices, but really strengthen your own experience. And every time you find the courage to
Hmm.
do something in that area, like do a little bit of video, you know, about
Yeah.
that. And, you know, even if it's just a 1 minute one to start off with,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
see how that is. Whatever is, you know, maybe it's too much to have a 15-minute video talking about this, but you could have like a, you know, in the 1 minute ones you're doing, explore the subject for, you could tell yourself, I do 30 of those, or, you know,
Yeah.
and with the subject feeling misunderstood, and just riff, and then you could look backwards at these 30, like I
Yeah.
just put out a random number, yes, and you would see what you've been talking about,
Hmm.
and then you could do a longer one, for example. I think that might be a good way forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, purposefully, you still can do the other one, but purposefully just say, okay, this minute now is feeling, and you just see what happens for you in that 1 minute.
Hmm.
What comes to mind? You don't, you just, it's just about the feeling of being misunderstood, you know?
Yeah.
And then you can call it being misunderstood, number one. Number two. And
It's just so weird that, as I say, I've been writing about this, talking about, teaching. Oh, I've been trying to get better at speaking, doing all this for decades now. And then I open a book or see something about ADHD, and it goes, one of the things is people commonly feel misunderstood and may spend a long time trying to figure that out. And I'm like, seriously, is this just a symptom of like, I've just spent 20 years doing this, and you just say, oh, that's normal, everybody feels that, in this group. I'm like, oh,
and I think, for example, this could be just your first 1 minute one.
yeah, yeah,
You know, and I think I really, if I can in any way, shape, or form encourage you to
yeah,
do that, because I think it might be fun. 1 minute, I
yeah,
think you, for sure you can come up with something in 1 minute, and it will be a rewarding journey. And
yeah,
I firmly believe we all have our life subjects, you know, that for
yeah,
some I relate very much with the feeling misunderstood,
yeah.
or, you know, and so I
I,
think
I kept thinking if I was better at speaking, then I wouldn't be misunderstood. And so, honestly, the books that I've written, the studies that I've done, get better at speaking, get better at speaking, get better at, it's like, no, you're still being
maybe you
misunderstood.
need to get better at being misunderstood.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's kind of the joke. Then it was like, oh, with the cartoons, what was funny and that I made myself laugh was the deliberate, like, oh, deliberately misunderstanding myself as I was drawing the cartoons and making fun of the words not agreeing with the image. And I thought that was funny. So,
I think
um,
maybe another thing that would be useful to tell yourself, to calm yourself, it's okay to be
mhm,
misunderstood. And the people who really get me, they
yeah,
will, you know, they will respect me. And I
yeah,
think, you know, I'm okay if somebody doesn't understand me completely, but
hmm,
I want to be respected.
yeah,
You know, and so maybe it's also telling yourself it's okay to be misunderstood by some people. You can't be, but the people who get me
yeah.
will understand or respect me. I think something
Hmm.
like that I would
I think that's something for me to think about because, as I say, for me, being misunderstood it definitely has that feeling of this is not safe, this is dangerous, this is yeah,
I would not think too much about it.
yeah,
You know,
okay,
I do get it, and so it's not the being misunderstood, it's what comes afterwards.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you put your own quirky self out there, and
mm,
then it's the judgment, isn't it? It's not
yeah,
the misunderstood, it's the judgment and the criticism and maybe having been attacked
yeah,
for it. And I think what is important, like to know that you, well, especially when it comes to the YouTube, you have control over it. You know, you can
yeah,
block people. I have blocked people. You can delete comments that
yeah,
are not respectful. And so you can do those
hmm,
things. You have control over that. And I think that for me is when I tell that, my parts that are worried, that's like the safety net I'm
yeah,
putting into place for myself. Also, to be honest, because I also don't want to be having other people who are sensitive to that stuff and then read a comment and also get re-traumatized,
yeah, yeah,
So I want my space to be a respectful one, and I will
hmm,
delete a comment that isn't, that's nasty. And
yeah,
so you do have those things,
yeah, yeah,
and that also helps to be clear on, okay, I can block people, I can, that's totally fine, whatever it is for you. But
yeah,
just to know we do have control over those things.
hmm, yeah. Do
That's
you know
the
what?
yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent. I had a comment the other day where they said that I was a worm, and I'm like,
that you were what?
a worm,
What?
WORM. What is that like slang for something? I don't know.
I don't know.
I was like, I think you're being horrible to me, but I don't really know what you're talking about.
I
So,
think I would such a comment, for example, I would delete.
yeah, yeah, I think I did. I deleted them and I brought them. Yeah, and I thought I don't think you're trying to make a helpful comment at all. Like, you know, so
It's
it's
tricky.
weird what pops up. Yeah.
It is weird, but um, I
But
think
it
the
wasn't
thing
particularly upsetting. It was just a bit confusing. It's like, okay. Yeah.
I think the thing is, it's kind of learning, and I think that's the difficult journey, that
Mm,
maybe now in our adult selves, we can protect ourselves better
yeah.
with people who don't understand,
Yeah.
and that's, I think, the work, it can't, the result can't be that we shut up.
Yeah.
But also, as I've said, I think you need to take those parts that want to keep you safe seriously and do it
Yeah.
step by step. So what I would like you to go away with is
Hmm.
to really be, with Karen that came up.
Yeah. I don't like that name because it
Well,
makes
you
it
come
feel
up with
like
another
a bad
one,
person. But I'll think of that. I'll think, yeah.
or you ask that part
Yeah.
directly what it wants to be called.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a working name and you can
Yeah.
change it. But I think it would be good if you could commit to
Yeah.
checking in with that and calming it down
Yeah.
daily,
Yeah.
at least once a day. Yes.
Okay.
I think that really do it at least for a month.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I would really love to encourage you to do these 1 minute videos
Yeah.
and to commit to a number.
Yeah.
Like 30, for example. Do you think
Yeah.
this is something you can do?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And when you have all those 30, so it's both a month, isn't it? If you were doing every day a 1 minute video on the being misunderstood, for example,
Yeah.
and then when you have it, all those 30, you could take a day where you just look back at them and find the red thread.
Yeah.
And you never know what comes from it, you know.
Yeah.
Do you think you can do you think
Yeah.
yeah?
I just think it's funny, this subject about misunderstood. It's like, say, it feels like an obsession. And when I started this this latest round of doing YouTube, it was like, I can't talk about that anymore. Because I'd been, as I say, I just spent like 20 years. It's
But
just that,
you know, like I think so, okay,
but
so for example,
it's obviously still there. It's
but
obviously,
maybe it is something that is, you know, like for example, I have a huge subject with loneliness. It's
yeah,
been there always, and I think it
yeah,
probably will always be there.
yeah,
So maybe those things that feel like wounds or however you want to call it, maybe that is a life subject,
yeah,
and maybe we can embrace it and let other people in, because you know
yeah,
there's for sure other people who need to hear it. So it's kind
yeah,
of like there's a reason why it's there,
hmm,
and the reason we are the way we are.
yeah,
So maybe just dive deeper into it. There are many interesting characters, you know, like Cassandra. I was enthralled with the Cassandra archetype that is very
yeah,
misunderstood, you know.
yeah,
And so it's kind of, if it's already there anyway, why not have fun with it?
yeah,
And like, you know, like attracting all the other misfits and misunderstood ones, you know, and then you
yeah,
can feel at home and at ease.
yeah,
And we all have our life subjects, you know, and there's a
yeah.
reason, and
No,
there's no point in.
because I kept trying to talk about misunderstandings and then feel other people would misunderstand me, and I was like, "Oh, really? I'm going round in circles." You know?
I
But
think
yeah,
that,
I think
yeah,
some people do spot something. It's been interesting to me this time around with the YouTube, that feeling of, oh, I have found some people that are my people. So
well,
even
there
though
you
I,
go, and it's
yeah,
worth that, isn't it? And I
yeah,
think it's really kind of the weird thing is somehow being okay with being misunderstood by some people.
yeah,
Yeah, is
and
how being
trust.
okay
You
with that.
used the word trust at the beginning. It's like, and trusting that some of the people will see through everything that you're saying and connect and different things.
Yes. Yes, I think it is the combination of trusting, of being
And
kind
being okay. Yeah.
with ourselves, you know,
Yeah.
and what I would say, not bullying those parts that want to keep us safe, because I think
Yeah.
they are working very hard on our behalf. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're always doing a great job. You know, that they might be just doing it in a way, you know, that
Yeah.
isn't helpful, but they want to help. It's just, you know, and the more you can befriend this and
Hmm.
the more you actually can change it into a little bit a more helpful part,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you know it helps you to look at, okay, so how can I keep myself safe while
Yeah.
taking a risk? I think that's the good combination. I will block people or whatever it is, you know,
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
listen enough to that voice to keep you safe to take the risk.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely feel like I don't know what that part of me wants to say.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I have some ideas about, it's so funny to think that I would think it's dangerous and wild, but just to geek out about this whole subject of being misunderstood. It's
I
just
don't
like,
find it
it almost
actually,
feels
I find
embarrassing.
it very, I find it very valid that
Yeah,
you
but it
feel
almost
that
feels
this is dangerous.
embarrassing how much I've read about it and thought about it. And
I don't find it at all. I find it
yeah,
very understandable.
yeah. Am I blushing? I feel like I'm blushing a little.
I think it is much more valid than you
Yeah,
actually perceive it right now. But you
yeah,
might come to a different conclusion if you really manage
yeah,
to do those 31-minute videos.
yeah, yeah,
And you will see how relevant that is to many, many people.
yeah,
Look, there are so many people that get somehow cast out by society. So
yeah.
many people, so many groups that feel
Hmm.
misunderstood.
Yeah,
Whether you take the chronically ill people, whether you take ADHD, whether you take transgender. I mean, there's many groups of people that feel misunderstood.
hmm,
So it is very relevant, and I just want to encourage you and to
yeah,
it and that your very own perspective and your
hmm,
very unique experience also with it is very valid,
yeah,
and your story with it is very valid, and I
mm,
do think that people want to hear it. I want to hear it.
yeah.
I want to hear it. So I'm really looking forward to your wonderful videos, and yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say? Otherwise, I would kind of conclude it.
No, no. I just think it's funny um using these words of dangerous and why it's funny how tame it is, but feels dangerous and crazy. It's I don't know, just seems a strange thing that I've perceived that me being excited about something and and sharing that part of my world and my life as being kind of dangerous to do. I just think that that's kind of funny in a kind of, I don't know, in a light way. Just that's funny. Yeah.
Well, I understand it very much, and I think that there is a point to it, and I think that many people feel like that.
Yeah.
But it might feel less dangerous when you have done it and you have the
Yeah.
facilitators to do so. So it'll be very interesting to see what you feel like after that month.
Yeah. After the 30 days. Okay, okay. Will do. And I shall report back.
And
Thanking you
thank you so
kindly.
much. That was a really interesting session, and
Yeah.
with a lot food for thought, as they say.
Yeah. I have to report back. Yeah. Take some action now.
Please report back.
Will
My
do.
warmest greetings to Karen.
Oh,
If
I
she,
think she's going to change her name.
yes, please
I,
tell me
I,
if you change the name as well. Yes.
yeah. I think she needs a name
A
that
nicer,
shows.
maybe funnier name or nicer name. See what we can come up with.
Yeah. Yeah. All right then.
All
Thank
right,
you.
then. Thank you so much, Trin.
Okay. Bye.
Have a good
Bye.
day. Bye bye.
Bye.